James and Joy had been married for years, and their love for each other seemed unshakable. They were always together, laughing, joking, and sharing precious moments. To anyone who looked at them, it seemed like they had the perfect marriage. Joy, in particular, felt incredibly blessed. She would often tell her friends how much she loved her husband, how he cared for her deeply, and how they were truly inseparable. She was proud of their relationship and constantly bragged about James to anyone who would listen. "My husband is my everything," she would say with a smile. "I can't imagine my life without him. He loves me more than anything in this world." Her friends would listen with kind smiles, some of them even nodding, while others exchanged knowing glances. You see, some of Joy's friends knew something she didn't. They knew that James wasn't the faithful husband he appeared to be. Behind closed doors, James had a habit of seeing other women, but none of Joy's friends wanted to tell her the truth. They didn't want to be the ones to ruin her happiness or destroy her marriage. Meanwhile, James continued to play his part. He would shower Joy with love, taking her out to beautiful gardens and romantic places. He wanted her to believe that she was the only woman in his life. Every night, he would sing sweet, romantic songs to her as she drifted off to sleep. The soft melodies were his way of reminding her how much he loved her, even though his actions outside of their home told a different story. Joy, unaware of the truth, would fall asleep with a smile, completely content in the love her husband seemed to offer her. Little did she know, James was living a double life, one of affection and loyalty at home, and one of secrets and lies outside it. Here's part 2 of the story, expanded and enhanced in simple, engaging language. One day, everything changed for Joy. She had just returned home from work, feeling tired but excited to see her husband, as usual. But as she stepped into their bedroom, her world turned upside down. There, in their matrimonial bed, was James, with another woman. Joy froze in shock, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Was this real? Could her eyes be deceiving her? Was she dreaming? No, this wasn't a dream. It was the painful, heartbreaking truth. Joy turned away quickly, her legs weak beneath her. She stumbled into the living room, tears streaming down her face as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. How could this be? Hadn't she been telling everyone about how amazing James was, about how much he loved her? Her mind raced with questions, but none of them made sense. James, realizing he had been caught, quickly followed her into the living room. His face was filled with guilt, but his voice was pleading. "Joy, please," he begged, his hands shaking. "I made a terrible mistake. It wasn't me. It was Satan. He made me do it. I'll never do it again, I promise. Please forgive me." Joy looked at him, her heart torn between the love she once had for him and the crushing betrayal she now felt. But her pain soon turned into anger. She had trusted him completely, and now he had shattered that trust. "You think a simple apology can fix this?" Joy said, her voice cold and firm. "No, James, I can't just forgive you like that. You're gonna sign a paper in court that says, if you ever cheat on me again, I will leave you. And not just leave you, I will take half of everything you have. Your money, your property, half of it will be mine." James hesitated, his face pale, but he knew he had no choice. He had to do whatever it took to keep Joy, to keep her from leaving him. "I'll sign," he said quietly, looking down at the floor. "But you need to understand something, Joy. If I'm signing that, then you will have to sign something too." Joy raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" James took a deep breath. "You will give me your body, whenever I want it, wherever I want it. If I want you in the house, in the car, on the road, in the church, in the woods, I want you to say yes every time. That way I won't need to look for another woman. I'll have everything I need from you." Joy was stunned. She had never imagined her marriage would come to this. But after everything that had happened, she knew she couldn't back down. She wanted to make sure James never betrayed her again. So reluctantly, she agreed to his terms. "Fine," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I will sign." The next day, the two of them went to court, where they signed the papers. James agreed to give Joy half of everything if he ever cheated again, and Joy agreed to give James her body whenever he wanted, wherever he wanted. From that day on, things changed between them. Joy could never relax. James began demanding more and more of her, pushing the boundaries of what she had signed. Sometimes, even if Joy wasn't in the mood, she would remember the terms they had agreed to and feel obligated to obey. James would call her, text her, or even show up at her office, demanding his rights. It didn't matter where she was or what she was doing. One day, James came to visit Joy at her office. She was sitting with her colleagues, discussing work, when he walked in. The moment he saw her, he gave her a look that made her heart race with fear. Without saying a word, he grabbed her hand and led her into an empty office nearby. Joy felt embarrassed, her face burning with shame as she realized what was about to happen. But she remembered the agreement she had signed, and she knew there was no turning back. Meanwhile, her colleagues were left in the main office, thinking how lucky Joy was. They saw how much James seemed to love her, how he couldn't stand being apart from her for even a moment. "Look at that," one of them whispered. "That's true love right there. They're so close, so connected. He loves her so much, he came all the way to her office just to be with her. What a lucky woman." But Joy knew the truth. She was trapped in a love that was no longer her own. Her once happy marriage had become a game of power and control, where every move was dictated by the terms they had signed. And no matter how hard she tried to escape, she couldn't break free from the cage she had built with James. As time went on, Joy found herself in a very difficult situation. She was heavily pregnant, and from the very beginning of her pregnancy, James made sure to remind her of the agreement they had signed. He constantly demanded more from her, telling her that because she had promised to give herself to him whenever and wherever he wanted, she had to continue to obey, even now, while carrying their child. "You're the only one in my life now," James would say, his voice cold but commanding. "So you'll be equal to the task. You signed it, remember? You belong to me." Joy felt trapped. She had always loved James, but now it seemed as though his love had turned into a cruel, selfish demand. She was no longer a person with her own wants and needs. She was simply an object he could control. One day, while they were shopping for baby items at the supermarket, James demanded something from Joy. "Give it to me right here," he ordered, his eyes dark with desire. Joy was stunned. People around them were busy shopping and chatting, unaware of what was happening. A few of them even whispered to each other, admiring the couple's apparent closeness. "Look at them. They can't wait to get home. I wish I had a love like that." But what they didn't know was the pain Joy was hiding behind her forced smile. She reluctantly agreed, feeling powerless to refuse him. They went to the bathroom, and right there, in that quiet space, Joy obeyed James's demands. She did it because, according to their agreement, she had no choice. But inside, she was dying. Months passed, and finally, Joy gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She was exhausted, but happy to meet the child she had carried for so long. But as she lay in the hospital bed, James once again showed his true nature. The moment Joy had given birth, James came into the room with one request. "Give it to me," he demanded, his eyes focused on his own desires, not caring that she had just given birth. Joy was shocked and repulsed. "I can't do this, James. Not now. Not after everything," she said firmly, her voice shaky but strong. But James wasn't going to let it go. He begged, and when Joy refused, he became angry. "You signed the agreement. You owe me." At that moment, the nurse, who had been standing nearby, overheard their conversation. Furious, she stepped forward. "James, are you out of your mind? She just gave birth. You need to give her time to heal. She can't do what you're asking right now. You need to let her rest." James was enraged. He pushed the nurse aside, trying to get closer to Joy. "I want my wife now. Let her go. She's mine." But the nurse refused to let him near her. "No. You're not going to harm her anymore. She's just given birth. She needs time to heal." Frustrated and humiliated, James finally gave up. He turned to Joy and said coldly, "Fine, but from now on go back to your parents' house. I'm not marrying you anymore. You're not the woman I want. I'll find other women who will give me what I want whenever I want." Joy was devastated, but in that moment, something inside her broke free. She was done. She had already divorced herself from him in her heart, and now she would do it officially. "I've already divorced myself from you," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "You've already shown me who you really are. I'm done with you." She packed her things and left the hospital, taking her baby to her parents' home. When she arrived, Her parents welcomed her with open arms. They could see how hurt she was, and they told her with love and care, "You can never go back to that man. He is not worthy of you. You deserve better." James, meanwhile, continued his reckless behavior. He couldn't control himself, and his constant affairs with other women eventually caught up with him. He contracted HIV, and over the months his health deteriorated. He became weaker and sicker every day until eventually he passed away from the disease he had brought upon himself. Joy, on the other hand, began to heal. She found the strength to move on with her life. She eventually met a kind, loving man who accepted her and her son. He loved them both, and together they built a life full of happiness, trust, and respect. Joy learned that real love was not about control or demands. It was about support, kindness, and mutual care. Moral of the story: this story teaches us an important lesson about love and respect in relationships. Love should never be about control or manipulation. A healthy relationship is built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. No one deserves to be treated as an object or forced into anything against their will. It's important to know your worth, stand up for yourself, and never settle for a love that makes you feel less than you are. Thank you all for sticking with me through this story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more exciting content. Your support means the world to me.